For decades, they told us this ingredient was light, clean, and good for dieting. But after 60, it becomes an invisible saboteur that attacks your pancreas in silence. Maltodextrin raises blood sugar more rapidly than table sugar, a detail that often surprises those who discover it. The science behind it can be described simply. The older body processes glucose more slowly because insulin responses tend to be reduced, and muscle mass, which helps clear glucose, becomes thinner with age. When maltodextrin enters this system, the rise in glucose happens quickly, and the body takes longer to bring it back down. This combination can lead to after-meal exhaustion, trembling, or that familiar fog of confusion that feels like the mind is momentarily stepping away. It is not weakness. It is your body trying to keep up with a pace that no longer matches its natural rhythm. What makes this situation even more unexpected is that many seniors believe they are doing everything right. They avoid obvious sweets. They buy foods labeled no sugar added. They try to reduce desserts. Yet maltodextrin is often used in these very foods as a substitute for sweetness or texture. This is where the frustration often begins. You think you are protecting your blood sugar, but the ingredient doing the most damage is hiding in plain sight. Even foods marketed as diabetic-friendly can include it, creating confusion when glucose levels still rise despite careful choices. One gentle shift that helps many people is examining the first few ingredients on packaged foods, not in a rigid or fearful way, but with curiosity and self-respect. The first ingredients reveal what the product is made of most heavily. When maltodextrin appears early in that list, it often means the food carries a higher chance of causing a sudden glucose hill rather than the gentler slope your body now prefers. Choosing an alternative version of the same food can make a meaningful difference in how your day unfolds. Maltodextrin behaves like a visitor who arrives at your home with a soft knock, but steps inside with a loud, hurried presence. At first, you barely notice them. Within minutes, they are shifting chairs, opening cupboards, disturbing the quiet rhythm of the room. They mean no harm, but their energy is simply too overwhelming for the tranquility you need at this stage of life. And that is what maltodextrin does inside the older body. It disrupts a quiet internal balance that deserves protection, patience, and care. The reason maltodextrin is added to these foods is simple. It improves thickness, texture, and consistency. But while its culinary purpose is harmless on the surface, the way the older body interprets it is another story. Maltodextrin breaks down so quickly that it becomes glucose with astonishing speed, overwhelming a metabolic system already working with reduced enzyme responses and slower digestion. For someone in their 20s or 30s, this rapid conversion might barely be noticed. For someone in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, it can change the course of a morning, a walk, or an entire night's rest. What makes maltodextrin especially deceptive is that it does not limit itself to sweet foods. Even salty or savory items, the ones people assume are safe from hidden sugars, can contain it. A spoonful of gravy, a handful of crackers, a packet of instant oatmeal meant to be a quick breakfast. These seemingly harmless choices can provoke the same glucose spike that leaves an older person wondering why their hands tremble slightly, why their thinking feels clouded, or why their energy falls sharply an hour after eating. It is often only when people begin to track what they consume that the pattern finally reveals itself. A gentle way to protect the body from these surprise spikes is to rely on simpler, quieter foods that behave honestly inside the body. A bowl of plain oats sprinkled with cinnamon offers warmth without disruption. A simple broth thickened by a small handful of beans brings comfort and steadiness. These swaps do not demand discipline or rigid dieting. They are small acts of respect toward a metabolism that now asks for more patience and fewer shocks. Hidden additives like maltodextrin resemble loose gravel on a familiar path. You do not see the danger at first because the road looks stable, dependable, but one misplaced step can shift your balance, reminding you that even ordinary choices carry unseen consequences. This is not meant to create fear. It is meant to bring awareness, so your steps become steadier and your meals more nourishing for the life you are living now. There is a moment in many people's lives when cooking becomes a negotiation between energy and need. Some days the body feels steady, and preparing a full meal is an act of comfort. Other days, opening a package or warming something quick feels like the only reasonable option. This shift is not a flaw. It is a natural response to changing strength, changing appetite, or simply the emotional weight that comes with aging. Yet this quiet reliance on convenience foods often brings with it a hidden consequence: more exposure to ingredients that the older body struggles to handle. Maltodextrin is one of them, and its effects are amplified by the subtle transformations that occur within us after 60. As the body ages, enzyme response is slow, the pancreas becomes less reactive, and the muscles, the greatest consumer of glucose, grow thinner unless actively maintained. These changes do not announce themselves loudly. Instead, they whisper through small signs, taking longer to recover after meals, feeling heavy or foggy in the afternoon, noticing that a short walk requires more determination than before. When maltodextrin enters this system, it acts with a speed that the older metabolism cannot match. Within minutes, glucose rises sharply, overwhelming the very pathways that once handled such shifts with ease. The body tries to correct the imbalance, but its tools are slower now, more deliberate, and the effort can leave a person feeling drained. This is where confusion often begins. Many older adults attribute sudden dizziness, irritability, or waves of tiredness to the natural process of aging. They assume these sensations are part of growing older, part of losing strength or clarity. But in countless cases, these episodes are the echo of a glucose crash, the body's attempt to recover from a spike caused by something as simple as a flavored oatmeal packet or a cup of thickened soup. The body is not failing, it is responding to an internal stressor it no longer has the flexibility to handle. One way to soften these spikes is to pair packaged foods with a source of gentle fiber. A spoonful of beans, a bit of chia gel, or even a few slices of cucumber can slow the surge, giving the body more time to react. This approach is not about restriction, it is about creating small buffers that respect the quieter metabolism you now live with. Each of these additions acts like a hand on the shoulder, steadying the system as it absorbs the meal. The older body resembles a well-worn engine with decades of stories etched into its frame. It no longer accelerates the way it once did, nor should it be expected to. What maltodextrin delivers, however, is a sudden burst of fuel pressure, intense, immediate, and out of sync with the engine's preferred rhythm. The engine sputters not because it is broken, but because the force arriving at its core is simply too abrupt. Understanding this is not an act of fear, it is an act of protection. And as this conversation unfolds, the question naturally becomes, if maltodextrin feels too harsh, what alternatives offer a gentler path forward? When a person discovers how strongly maltodextrin affects their energy, the next question often rises quietly. If this ingredient disrupts the body's balance, what can step in with more kindness? The answer is not found in extreme diets or expensive substitutes, but in simple choices that allow the body to breathe again. Yet it is important to clear one misconception first. Many assume that replacing maltodextrin with artificial sweeteners will solve the problem. It feels logical at first, almost comforting, to imagine that sweetness without sugar must be harmless. But some of these substitutes can confuse the delicate communication between the gut and the brain, creating a signal that sweetness has arrived without delivering the nourishment the body expects. Over time, this mismatch can lead to more cravings, more instability, and more frustration. The older body responds far more gently to options that mirror nature rather than chemistry. A small amount of fruit puree can bring sweetness without shock. Cinnamon can deepen flavor while supporting steadier glucose rhythms. Plain yogurt can add body and creaminess to dishes without turning into an invisible sugar surge. These alternatives do not race through the bloodstream. They move slowly, offering texture and taste without awakening the sudden spikes that leave so many older adults feeling tired or unsteady. They align with the quieter metabolism that aging brings, asking nothing more than patience and appreciation. In communities known for extraordinary longevity, meals are built on foods that still resemble their origins. Thickeners come from mashed beans, roasted vegetables, or fermented condiments. Sweetness comes from fruit in small amounts, used with intention rather than excess. These traditions were not created to manage blood sugar or extend life, yet they organically support both. Their wisdom lies in honoring the body's natural processes rather than overwhelming them. Every meal carries the slow, grounding rhythm of real ingredients, gently guiding digestion and energy throughout the day. When a recipe asks for a thickener, cooked lentils can take the place of maltodextrin in savory dishes, offering depth and softness without volatility. For sweet dishes, Blended chia gel can add body, while bringing a quiet, steadying effect on glucose. These substitutions are more than culinary adjustments. They are acts of care toward a body that has carried decades of effort, worry, and love. Imagine crossing a narrow bridge high above a river. If the boards beneath your feet are solid and steady, you move with confidence. But if the boards shift or tremble, even a few steps can feel uncertain. Whole food thickeners are like the steady boards, holding firm beneath you. Processed thickeners like maltodextrin shake the bridge ever so slightly, enough to unsettle your balance without warning. The goal is not perfection, it is steadiness. And steadiness is what gives the older body the chance to move through the day with dignity and calm. As we near the close of this conversation, a larger truth begins to form. The issue has never been simply about avoiding one ingredient. It is about understanding how deeply the body depends on consistency, especially in the later decades of life. This brings us to the final reflections, where the teachings of long-lived cultures and the wisdom of renowned physicians weave together into a gentle reminder. Small changes, chosen with intention, can lift silent burdens the body has carried for far too long. There are moments in life when clarity arrives not through dramatic events, but through a quiet realization. Sometimes it happens at the kitchen table, staring at a bowl of soup that should have brought comfort, but instead left you strangely tired afterward. Sometimes it appears during a walk, when your legs feel heavier than usual, or your balance seems slightly off for reasons you cannot explain. And sometimes it reveals itself late at night, when sleep is restless and the body feels unsettled, almost as if something inside refuses to calm down. These experiences can begin to shape the belief that this is simply what aging feels like, that the body has started to slip away. But the truth is often gentler, more nuanced, and far more hopeful than that. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara often spoke of how the body becomes quieter with age. Not weaker, quieter. It shifts from the strong movements of youth to a state where steadiness matters more than force. This quiet body depends on consistency, on small choices that respect its limits. When something disrupts that rhythm, especially something that forces the metabolism into sudden effort, the entire system feels the aftershock. This is why certain glucose spikes feel harsher after 60, why a meal that once posed no issue now leads to fogginess, trembling, or an unpredictable loss of energy. The older body is asking for gentleness, and gentleness begins with understanding what disturbs it. Maltodextrin is one of those disturbances. Not because it is poisonous or exotic, but because it enters the bloodstream with a speed that the aging metabolism cannot comfortably absorb. It sits quietly in the ingredient lists of foods many older adults rely on. Flavored oatmeal packets, crackers, soups, sauces, protein powders, snacks marketed as safe for those watching their sugar. It does not taste overwhelmingly sweet. It does not announce itself. And yet it raises blood sugar more rapidly than table sugar, placing a sudden burden on a system already working with less elasticity than before. To understand the weight of this burden, imagine the metabolism as a hand catching a ball. When you are young, the hand is quick, strong, ready to adjust to any speed. With age, the hand remains capable, but it prefers slower throws, gentler arcs. Maltodextrin is the equivalent of a ball hurled unexpectedly at high speed. The hand still tries to catch it, but the impact is harsher, and the recovery takes longer. This is what happens when maltodextrin hits the bloodstream. The pancreas must respond faster. The muscles must absorb more glucose than they are prepared for. The organs must communicate urgently. The aftermath may feel like dizziness, irritability, sudden weakness, or the sense that something inside has shifted out of place. Many older adults mistake these sensations for aging itself. They assume the tiredness is permanent, the mental fog unavoidable, the sudden mood swings part of getting older. But often these symptoms are not age speaking. They are the echoes of metabolic instability. When the spike crashes down, the body falls with it, landing in a low that feels heavier than the one before. These patterns can continue for years before anyone recognizes the cause, and recognition brings relief, because it means the body is not failing, it is reacting. Dan Buettner's observations of communities with remarkable longevity add an important layer to this understanding. In places where reaching 90 or even 100 is common, meals are guided by foods that digest slowly. Beans, whole grains, vegetables, fruits in modest amounts, fermented condiments. These foods release energy gently. They do not shock the body. They honor the older metabolism the way one would speak softly to someone who has lived a long, weathered life. In those communities, people stay active longer, not because their genes protect them, but because their daily choices avoid placing unnecessary strain on the body's quiet machinery. This does not require abandoning favorite foods or living under strict rules. Instead, it begins with noticing. Noticing how you feel after certain meals, noticing the ingredients that appear often in your pantry, noticing the difference between meals that ground you and meals that unsettle you. One change often leads to another. A flavored oatmeal packet becomes a bowl of plain oats warmed with cinnamon. A thickened soup becomes a broth enriched with a spoonful of cooked beans. A powdered drink mix becomes yogurt blended with fruit. These swaps are simple, but their effect is meaningful because they allow the body to breathe in its own rhythm without sudden demands. When glucose remains steady, mornings feel steadier, thoughts feel clearer, movements feel more secure. The days become less unpredictable, and this steadiness nourishes more than the body. It nourishes confidence. It brings back the sense that you can trust yourself again, that your energy will support you rather than betray you midway through a task or a conversation. Living with this steadiness brings its own quiet joy, a feeling that life has not slipped away but has simply asked for a new kind of care. The question that lingers at the end of this reflection is not one of restriction, but one of awareness. Not every packaged food is harmful. Not every ingredient is an enemy. But some choices fit better with the realities of an aging metabolism, and others work against it without you ever noticing the link. The body does not ask for perfection. It asks for rhythm. It asks for meals that honor its pace. It asks for fewer shocks, fewer sudden shifts, fewer days spent recovering from ingredients that offer no nourishment. So the question becomes gentle and personal. Which foods in your daily life seem harmless, yet leave you feeling unsteady afterward? Which small change might bring your body a little more peace tomorrow than it had today? Your reflections may guide someone else who is struggling silently, just as someone else's insight may someday guide you.